Your suspension is dying right now, and you have no idea. Over 70% of cars have severe suspension wear that'll cost you $1,500 plus in repairs. But dealerships won't tell you the truth. Suspension failure is 100% preventable. In this video, I'll expose 12 dirt-cheap tricks that make suspension last 200,000 plus miles, plus 3 deadly mistakes mechanics make that destroy everything. Let's start with a $5 can sitting in your garage that saved my truck from a $2,000 repair. 12WD-40. If you only do one thing from this entire list, spray WD-40 silicone. Most people think WD-40 is just for squeaky doors. Dead wrong. This cheap can is the most underrated suspension saver on the planet, and mechanics don't tell you about it because there's no money in a $5 fix. I'm talking about protecting bushings from moisture, road salt, and the kind of rot that costs $800 in control arms. The application takes 10 minutes monthly. Spray all visible rubber bushings until they're lightly coated. Let it soak in. Wipe excess. My truck is at 180,000 miles on original bushings. Identical trucks in my area on their second or third set of control arms. Regular WD-40 is wrong for this. You need the silicone formula specifically. Regular WD-40 contains petroleum distillates that can actually degrade rubber. The silicone version conditions rubber like leather conditioner protects car seats. Protecting bushings is just the beginning. There's another chemical war happening on your suspension that most people don't notice until rust has already caused expensive damage. 11. Monthly underbody wash to remove road salt. Road salt is eating your suspension alive, not slowly, aggressively. It's seizing bolts, destroying coatings, and rotting metal from the inside out until components crack under stress. A $3 underbody wash once a month prevents this massacre, but mechanics love when you skip it. Why? Because rust repairs pad their wallets with thousands of your dollars. The washing process is simple but critical. Use a pressure washer or car wash underbody spray to blast away salt accumulation, focusing on suspension mounting points, inside of wheels, and anywhere salt collects. Do this every 2 to 3 weeks during winter, immediately after any snow salt exposure. Some people think the car wash underbody spray is a scam, but it's actually one of the most valuable services offered. That $3 add-on prevents thousands in rust damage if used consistently throughout winter months. The truth is, washing away salt is reactive. There's a proactive method, one that involves coating that prevents corrosion before it starts. 10. Fluid film or oil-based corrosion protection. Professional corrosion protection applied annually to suspension components creates a barrier that prevents salt, moisture, and oxygen from reaching metal surfaces. This is the single most effective rust prevention method available. Yet most people never think about it until components are already destroyed. Fluid film, cosmoline, or even used motor oil sprayed on clean suspension components displaces moisture and creates a protective film that lasts 6 to 12 months. The coating is self-healing. It flows into scratches and maintains protection even when the surface is damaged. According to fleet maintenance data from major trucking companies operating in Salt Belt states, vehicles treated annually with lanolin-based corrosion inhibitors showed 78% reduction in suspension component rust failures over 10-year service periods compared to untreated vehicles, with treatment costs averaging $150 to $200 annually versus $800 to $1,200 in prevented rust repairs. I've been coating my truck's suspension with fluid film every fall for 8 years. While neighbors' trucks show heavy rust and seized components, mine looks like it came from the desert. The difference is dramatic: clean metal, free-moving bolts, and no rust scale anywhere. The application process requires getting under the vehicle and thoroughly spraying all metal suspension components, inside frame rails, and anywhere rust typically attacks. Professional shops charge $150 to $250 for this service, or you can DIY with $40 worth of fluid film and a pump sprayer. But even perfect corrosion protection can't save you from a problem that's slowly destroying alignment and eating tires. 9. Check and rotate tires every 5,000 miles. Tire rotation isn't just about tire life. It's critical suspension maintenance that prevents uneven loading patterns that destroy bushings, bearings, and alignment. Unrotated tires develop wear patterns that create vibrations and stress that accelerate suspension deterioration. When tires wear unevenly, they create force imbalances that stress suspension components. The front suspension works harder to compensate for worn front tires. Bushings flex more than designed, and wheel bearings experience uneven loading that causes premature failure. According to tire and suspension research from Tire Rack's test facility, vehicles with proper tire rotation schedules showed 35% less front suspension bushing wear and 28% longer wheel bearing life compared to vehicles where tires were never rotated, with the benefits most pronounced in front-wheel drive vehicles where front tires wear significantly faster. I religiously rotate tires every 5,000 miles and track suspension component life across multiple vehicles. My properly rotated vehicles average 120,000 plus miles on original wheel bearings, while friends who never rotate tires replace bearings at 60,000 to 80,000 miles. Most shops charge $20 to $30 for rotation, but many tire retailers offer free lifetime rotation with tire purchases. Take advantage of this service. It's preventive maintenance that pays enormous dividends in suspension longevity. Underinflated tires don't just waste fuel. They create suspension-destroying forces that stress bushings, accelerate wear, and cause alignment changes that compound damage over time. There's one thing you can do to prevent this. 8. Maintain proper tire pressure weekly. Low tire pressure allows excessive sidewall flex that transfers impact forces to suspension rather than absorbing them in the tire. Every pothole hit with underinflated tires sends shockwaves through bushings, ball joints, and shock mounts that wouldn't occur with properly inflated tires. Michelin's engineers proved something shocking. Running tires just 25% low increases suspension stress by 50% every time you hit a bump. Over 50,000 miles, you're creating damage equal to 100,000 plus miles of normal driving. That's how a $2 air pump prevents a $1,200 suspension replacement. The checking process takes 2 minutes weekly with a quality tire gauge. Check when tires are cold, adjust to door jamb specifications, not sidewall maximum, and recheck monthly. This simple habit prevents thousands in premature suspension damage. Many modern vehicles have tire pressure monitoring systems, but these only alert when pressure is dangerously low, 25% below specification. By the time the warning light activates, you've already been causing suspension damage for weeks or months. If there's anything you should know, it's that perfect tire pressure can't protect against the next threat that's hiding in plain sight. 7. Inspect shock absorbers for leaks monthly. Leaking shock absorbers don't just affect ride quality, they allow excessive suspension movement that destroys bushings, loosens bolts, and causes alignment changes that accelerate tire and component wear. Catching leaks early prevents cascade failures that turn a $200 shock replacement into $1,500 of damage. Shocks control suspension movement and prevent bouncing that stresses all connected components. When shocks fail and allow excessive motion, bushings flex beyond their design limits, bolts work loose from constant movement, and alignment changes from uncontrolled suspension travel. The inspection takes 5 minutes. Visually examine each shock for oil residue, wetness, or drips. Any oil presence means internal seals have failed and replacement is needed. Don't wait for ride quality problems because by then, secondary damage has already occurred. Shocks fail gradually, so you often don't notice handling degradation until you replace them and realize how bad they'd become. Monthly visual inspection catches the problem before you adapt to the deteriorating performance. However, shock maintenance is pointless if you're committing the next mistake that's destroying suspension through ignorance. 6. Avoid potholes and road hazards aggressively. This sounds obvious, but most people don't understand that a single pothole hit at speed can cause suspension damage equivalent to 10,000 miles of normal wear. Aggressive hazard avoidance isn't just about comfort, it's critical suspension preservation that prevents catastrophic impact damage. Suspension components are designed for gradual stress cycles over time, not sudden violent impacts that exceed design limits. One pothole hit can bend control arms, crack subframes, damage ball joints, and destroy wheel bearings instantly. Damage that might not become apparent until thousands of miles later. Pothole damage costs American drivers $3 billion every year. That's $300 to $500 per hit on average. In northern states, 1 in 5 drivers gets nailed annually. But here's what AAA won't tell you. Every single one of those hits was avoidable. Most people just don't care enough to slow down or change lanes. Don't be that person. I watched a friend hit a massive pothole at 45 miles per hour that instantly bent his control arm, cracked his wheel, and destroyed his strut mount. The impact sounded like an explosion, and the repair bill exceeded $900. Meanwhile, I've driven the same roads for 200,000 miles without suspension damage by treating hazard avoidance as sacred. The technique requires constant road scanning, reduced speeds on damaged pavement, and willingness to change lanes or even stop when necessary. Treat massive potholes like obstacles to be avoided at all costs, rather than inevitable hazards to barrel through. Modern suspension is sophisticated, but not indestructible. The violent forces from pothole impacts exceed engineering design limits and cause immediate or latent damage that abbreviates component life even if nothing breaks outright. What's the worst pothole damage you've experienced? Share your repair bills in the comments. Let's highlight how expensive one moment of inattention can be. Yet even avoiding all hazards won't save your suspension. There's one major lubrication mistake that most people make and worsens everything else. If you're just realizing how much money you've been wasting, subscribe now before you forget. 5. Grease fittings. Every oil change. Here's a dirty secret. Many suspension components have grease fittings that need lubrication every oil change. Mechanics ignore them because it's time-consuming and there's no money in it. They'd rather you skip greasing, let the parts fail, and pay them $500 to $800 for replacement. Don't fall for it. Regular greasing extends component life by 100,000 plus miles. Ball joints, tie rod ends, and some control arm bushings have serviceable fittings that need fresh grease every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. Without lubrication, metal-on-metal contact causes accelerated wear, increased play, and eventual failure that requires component replacement. According to lubrication engineering studies by the Society of Automotive Engineers, properly greased suspension components showed 73% longer service life compared to never greased components, with average replacement intervals extending from 80,000 miles to 140,000 plus miles through simple regular greasing. I've greased my truck's suspension religiously since new, and at 180,000 miles, the original ball joints and tie rod ends still have zero play. Friends with identical trucks on their second or third set of these components never knew the grease fittings existed. The process requires a grease gun, $20, quality suspension grease, $10, and 5 minutes per oil change. Pump grease into each fitting until you see old grease purging out or the boot swells slightly. This simple maintenance prevents $500 to $800 in premature component replacement. 4. Alignment check every 12 months or 15,000 miles. Proper alignment isn't just about tire wear, it's critical suspension preservation that prevents uneven loading patterns that destroy bushings, bearings, and create handling problems. Annual alignment checks catch gradual changes before they cause expensive damage. Alignment doesn't change suddenly unless you hit something major. It drifts gradually from bushing wear, settling springs, and component movement. These small changes create uneven forces that accelerate wear in ways you won't notice until components fail prematurely. According to vehicle dynamics research from Hunter Engineering, vehicles operating with alignment specs outside manufacturer tolerances showed 45% faster suspension, bushing deterioration, and 38% shorter tire life compared to properly aligned vehicles, with annual alignment checks reducing lifetime suspension costs by an average of $1,200 to $1,800. I've tracked alignment specs on all my vehicles annually and discovered that alignment drifts even without obvious incidents. Catching these changes early and correcting them prevents the cascade of uneven wear that destroys multiple components simultaneously. Most shops charge $80 to $120 for four-wheel alignment, but many offer lifetime alignment packages for $200 to $250 that provide unlimited alignments. For vehicles you plan to keep long-term, these packages pay for themselves within 2 to 3 alignments while ensuring perfect geometry always. 3. Check and tighten suspension bolts seasonally. Suspension bolts loosen over time from vibration and thermal cycling, creating play that causes noise, uneven wear, and potential safety hazards. Seasonal inspection and retorquing prevents the cascade failures that occur when loose components damage adjacent parts. A loose control arm bolt allows movement that wears mounting holes, damages bushings, and creates alignment changes. The looseness accelerates, causing progressive damage that requires replacing components that should have lasted 200,000 miles. I caught a loose lower control arm bolt during seasonal inspection that would have destroyed the bushing and elongated the mounting hole within months. 15 seconds with a torque wrench prevented a $400 repair that was developing silently. The inspection process requires checking torque specs on critical suspension bolts, control arms, strut/shock mounts, sway bar links, and subframe bolts. Many bolts require specific torque sequences or angle measurements for proper installation. Some suspension bolts are torque to yield and can't be reused once removed. Understanding which bolts can be retorqued and which require replacement prevents creating problems while attempting maintenance. The most perfectly torqued bolts won't help if you're destroying your suspension with the next terrible habit. It's so crazy. It creates suspension stress and can lead to dangerous component failures, yet many have no idea what it is. 2. Don't overload your vehicle beyond ratings. Exceeding your vehicle's payload or towing capacity creates suspension stress that accelerates wear, causes sag, and can lead to catastrophic component failures. Most people don't know their vehicle's actual capacity and routinely overload without realizing the damage they're causing. Every vehicle has a gross vehicle weight rating, GVWR, and payload capacity listed on the door jamb. Operating beyond these limits stresses suspension components beyond design specifications, causing accelerated bushing wear, spring sag, and potential frame damage. I watched a friend destroy his truck's suspension hauling loads 30% over capacity regularly. By 60,000 miles, his springs were sagged, bushings destroyed, and frames showing stress cracks, damage that should take 200,000 plus miles to develop under proper loading. Many people don't realize that payload includes passengers, cargo, tongue weight of trailers, and all accessories. That half-ton truck with 4 adults, full bed of gravel, and a trailer might be 20% over capacity, even though it seems fine. The solution is knowing your actual capacity, weighing heavy loads when possible, and being honest about whether you need a higher capacity vehicle for your use case. Pushing limits costs thousands in premature wear. Overloading at least happens when you choose it. The final trick separates cars that last from those that die early, and it's something you're probably ignoring right now. 1. Use quality replacement parts, not cheap alternatives. When suspension components eventually need replacement, using quality OEM or premium aftermarket parts ensures proper fit, correct materials, and design that matches your vehicle's engineering. Cheap parts fail quickly and can cause damage that exceeds their cost savings. The aftermarket suspension industry is flooded with junk. Parts that look identical to quality components but are made from inferior materials, have incorrect tolerances, and fail within months. These parts are often unbranded or sold under multiple house brands by parts stores. According to warranty claim analysis from parts retailers, including AutoZone and O'Reilly, budget suspension components show failure rates of 15 to 25% within the first year, compared to 2 to 3% for OEM or premium branded parts, with replacement costs, including labor, often exceeding double the initial savings from choosing cheaper components. I learned this lesson using cheap ball joints that failed after 15,000 miles, requiring labor costs that exceeded what I saved buying discount parts. Now I use OEM or known brands like Moog, Mevotech, or Timken. The parts cost more but last 100,000 plus miles. The cost difference seems significant. Cheap ball joints are $30 versus $80 for quality. But when the cheap parts fail at 20,000 miles and require $200 in labor to replace again, the savings become losses. Parts stores push their house brands aggressively because margins are higher, but these often come from the same Chinese factories producing the cheapest components. Insist on known brands even when counter staff tries steering you to equivalent alternatives. The 3 deadly suspension mistakes that destroy everything. Now that you know what to do, here are 3 mistakes that will destroy your suspension faster than anything else. Mistake number 1, replacing only one side of failed components. When one control arm bushing fails, many people replace only the failed side to save money. This creates mismatched suspension that causes alignment issues, uneven handling, and accelerated wear that destroys the new component prematurely while finishing off the old side. Suspension components wear at similar rates. If one side failed, the other is close behind. Replacing only the failed side means paying labor twice within months, plus dealing with alignment issues and handling problems from mismatched components. I watched my neighbor replace only the right front control arm, ignoring the left side that looked okay. 3 months later, the left side failed, requiring him to pay full labor costs again for work that should have been done simultaneously. The proper approach is replacing suspension components in pairs. Both lower control arms, both outer tie rods, both front struts. This ensures matched wear characteristics, proper alignment, and eliminates the false economy of piecemeal repairs. Some people argue they can't afford both sides, but paying labor twice plus the cost of driving on mismatched suspension actually costs more, while creating safety hazards and accelerating wear on related components. Mistake number 2, ignoring worn components because it still drives fine. This is the most expensive mistake on this list. Suspension fails so gradually that you adapt to the death without noticing. Your brain adjusts. Your handling feels normal, even though it's garbage. By the time you finally notice something's wrong, secondary damage has already multiplied your repair bill by 2 to 3 times. Worn ball joints with excessive play cause uneven tire wear, stress on wheel bearings, and alignment changes. Waiting until the handling feels dangerous means those other components are already damaged and need replacement alongside the ball joints. According to mechanic survey data from the Automotive Service Association, customers who delay suspension repairs due to "still drives okay" reasoning spend an average of 2.3 times more on eventual repairs compared to customers who address problems immediately upon detection, with additional damage to tires, wheel bearings, and alignment-dependent components accounting for the cost increase. I delayed replacing worn sway bar links because the handling seemed fine, despite obvious clunking noises. By the time I addressed it, the excessive movement had damaged sway bar bushings and loosened mounting bolts, turning an $80 link replacement into $250 of repairs. The lesson is addressing worn components immediately when detected during inspections rather than waiting for failure or obvious symptoms. Prevention costs far less than repair of secondary damage. Professional mechanics can detect component wear long before drivers notice handling changes. When they recommend suspension work on vehicles that feel fine, they're trying to prevent the cascade failures that occur from delaying necessary maintenance. Mistake number 3, using impact guns on suspension bolts. This is the mistake that professionals make and DIYers copy without understanding the damage it causes. Impact guns over-torque suspension bolts, strip threads, and damage components in ways that create future failures mechanics profit from repairing. Suspension bolts require specific torque values and often specific tightening sequences or angle measurements. Impact guns can't provide this precision and often exceed design torque by 200 to 300%, stretching bolts beyond yield and damaging threaded mounting points. According to fastener failure analysis from the Society of Automotive Engineers, suspension bolts installed with impact guns showed failure rates 4 to 5 times higher than properly torque wrench installed bolts, with over-torquing damage including stripped threads, broken bolts, and elongated mounting holes requiring replacement of expensive mounting brackets or subframes. I've seen control arm bolts break during removal because previous mechanics had over-torqued them so badly the threads were damaged. The bolt extraction alone added 2 hours of labor to what should have been a straightforward repair. The proper technique is hand-tightening bolts to snug, then using calibrated torque wrenches to achieve manufacturer specifications. Some bolts require additional angle rotation after torque is achieved. These procedures exist for critical safety reasons. These 12 tricks and 3 mistakes are the difference between suspension that dies at 80,000 miles and suspension that laughs its way past 200,000. 30 minutes a month prevents thousands in repairs. It's that simple, but don't stop here. There's one more hidden suspension killer I didn't cover, something destroying your car right now that even good mechanics miss. It's silent, it's expensive, and it's probably happening in your driveway. In my next video, I expose the 5 suspension-killing mistakes that cost drivers $2,000 plus in avoidable repairs. Watch it now before this problem costs you a fortune. And if this video helped you dodge a suspension disaster, smash that like button and subscribe so you never miss another money-saving secret.